Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Spiritist Psychology Study Group on Human Beings in Conflict, Challenge for the Conscious Being, where we explore our unconscious to help you enhance our mental health, our spirituality, and our wholeness based on the teaching of Joanna de Angelis. I'm Fabrício Assunção from the Spirit Society of Bournemouth. Here with us, our speaker, Dr. Anahy Fonseca from the Spiritist Medical Association of Brazil. This evening, Anahy will give us a PowerPoint presentation with the main ideas brought by Joanna de Angelis and all authors. Then we will have time for questions and answers, followed by a time for us to share first-hand experience related to our study. Now, a few words of introduction about Dr. Anahy Fonseca. She's a psychiatrist and a founding member of the Department of Psychiatry and Spirituality at the Psychiatry Association of Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. For some 30 years, she has been working in psychotherapy, diagnosis, and research on the relationship between spirituality and mental health. She is also a Jungian analyst and member of the Medical Spiritist Association of Brazil, where she teaches Spiritist psychology by Joanna de Angelis. Our study topic is collective disorders. I now hand it over to Anahy for her talk on tonight's themes, modern distress. Now over to you, Anahy.
Well, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again. I will just share my PowerPoint. You have to send a request.
Okay, it is table now.
All right.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Somebody said hello, Fabrício.
I just muted. Over to you, Anahy.
Okay. I was kind of, okay, hello, hello. Nobody knows, maybe from another dimension, right? So, as Fabrício said, here's our study group about human beings in conflict, challenges for the conscious being, a journal of self-discovery inspired by the spirit Joanna de Angelis. And today we're going to be talking about modern distress, massification, loss of sense of humor, self-destructive behaviors. It is in the book Love, Unbeatable Love by Joanna de Angelis. So in our WhatsApp, sorry, oops, let me just go back. Okay. In our WhatsApp group, so Fabrício has put the text, okay? So this is just a summary so we can think together for our discussion later. And I don't think, Fabrício, there is a translation of this book in English. Do you think?
Yeah, no, not yet.
Okay, okay. So I couldn't find the image of the book in English, only in Portuguese.
Hmm.
So Joanna de Angelis says the advances in science combined with technology have made life easier with incomparable contributions. Hygiene and health, comfort and pleasure, ease of mobility and culture, solidarity and support programs, broader resources for fraternity and personal interrelationships. Nevertheless, she says, I'm just trying to, sorry. Nevertheless, the noble and useful advancements have not been able to prevent urban violence, increasingly destructive wars, social and economic extreme poverty, seismic phenomena, the emergence of new and disastrous diseases, corruption in various forms running rampant, heinous crimes and the death penalty, euthanasia, abortion, suicide, betrayal. These advancements have looked deeper into the human psyche and unraveled many enigmas which previously caused bewilderment, offering therapeutic resources to minimize and even cure many disorders. However, they could not avoid neurotic and panic disorders, for instance, deep depressions, and many other tormenting pathologies of the mind. It turns out that the inner man has not yet been conquered. His valuable achievements from the outside, on the other hand, trapped him within the limits of the hours, as well as within a crushing load of commitments and a barrage of tasks required for survival, leaving him stressed out or indifferent to those around him, turning him arrogant or stunned, deprived of higher ideals and crammed with things of no real meaning. Social demands stripped him of his naturalness, and his yearnings for outward success have unbalanced him, making him consider important the values that become known to him, although they are enslaving, to the detriment of those other values that remain unseen and they are liberating, actually. So I think this is very important. We are going to be discussing this later on. But I think this is very important, people, so that we can think together. What Joanna is asking us to, to go deeper in our modern lives, the way that we are living. Just yesterday, I was going to some place, a meeting that I had, and there was a big soccer game here in my city, in Porto Alegre. We have two main teams, the Reds and the Blues, let's say. And it was, a soccer game, and I had to go in the avenue, go through the stadium. And it's amazing. Here in Brazil, there's a law, I think it's Brazilian, not only in my state, that people cannot drink alcohol in the stadiums, okay? But what happens is that they drink before getting into the stadium, and they start like, if it is in the afternoon or late afternoon, early evening, they have been drinking alcohol the whole day. They get together in bars and this and that. So it was kind of sad to see that this, okay, we understand people must have fun. We are going to talk about today about the sense of humor also, right? So we want to have fun, we want to be happy, we want to be together. I don't know other parts of the world, for instance, in United States, where I used to go often, not quite sure right now, but used to go often, have lots of friends there. And we know that shopping malls, for instance, in the United States, they are going down, right? People are buying lots of stuff through, through the internet. So they go less in shopping malls and things like that. But here in Brazil, Brazilians love to have fun, to get together, and they meet a lot in shopping malls, for instance. But what we see is not really people talking to each other as we used to do because of my many years, I can tell you. Previously, before the internet, we used to meet friends And this was the big part of the weekend. Talk to friends in parks, in, in other places, public places, but really see each other. And what I have seen, for instance, yesterday, where the Reds were playing here, well, even if now there are women and children that go to soccer games, but they are kind of, all dressed in that color. Okay, if they think this is funny, it's all right. But they are what I could pay attention just because I was going to talk to you about that today. So it was a synchronicity that people were not actually looking at each other, even families with children, you know, they were like, like robots. We were talking about that. Joanna was talking about that with us last meeting. So it was like robots, like you go to the stadium all dressed in a color of your soccer team or whatever sport, but you are not really together with someone that is with you, or not even paying attention, being polite, for instance, with each other. They were all like, a crowd, a mass of people running to get, I don't know, better places or whatever. So, and just to, of course, they are supposed to have fun, but if you have a lot of alcohol, it's not only because I'm a medical doctor, but and we know the amount of alcohol in the body acts like poison at some point. Okay, it's not one when you have a glass of wine, of course, but if you have a bottle of wine, you are telling your body that you are putting poison in your body. Your body is going to react as an inflammatory process has started. Okay, so how can you even pay attention to your team and you really have fun and pay attention to the soccer players, if if that's a good or artistic um, way of playing or not, or whatever, the fun of the sport. So that was just a small example. And also we had at the same weekend, this morning actually, this big marathon. I know that in Boston they had a marathon in the United States, Massachusetts, a couple of days ago, I think, weeks. And actually that's something funny. I don't know, for the Brazilians that were here, I don't know if you have heard about that. Somebody told me that are here that there was a guy who was getting to the finishing line, an American, North American, and he just fell to the ground. I don't know if you have heard that. Somebody told me that. And everybody was going to the finishing line. They didn't care if there was one of the runners was on the ground. And then one of the runners stopped and picked up the guy, okay, in his lap or whatever, in his shoulders, and took him to the end of the line. Of course, he missed the first place or whatever chance he had to get there. And just another synchronicity, not that anybody is better than anybody else or any culture, but just for us to understand about fraternity and the importance to not, try to not have prejudice against each other, understanding that we are emanations of the same source, doesn't matter the culture and gender or whatever, color of the skin, whatever. That the person who picked up the runner was a Brazilian, Fabrizio. I don't know if you knew that. Who took up the American? I think he took in his lap, or I thought it was a nice synchronicity, that we have a lot of people from other countries listening to what Joanna de Angelis, because we know that in spirit we don't have countries, right? We only have one country, that is the spiritual dimension. So understanding that we can be the one to fall on the ground, and that doesn't matter from which part of the world, if I have a brother or sister in the heart, in spirit, if this brother or sister can pick me up and help me, then I will be really grateful. And the love that will connect us, love, unbeatable love, will tell us in reality that we are all brothers and sisters. And it's not a way of speaking, it is a knowledge from the heart. Okay, so back to Joanna de Angelis. She says that social demands stripped him of his naturalness, the person, and his yearnings for outward success have unbalanced him, making him consider important the values that become known to him, although they are enslaving, to the detriment of those other values that remain unseen and are liberating. Fear keeps him at home. Don't we have a lot of people at home, just thinking that they have friends in the Instagram or whatever social media, and that they are real friends if they are saying, okay, I like what you are posting or whatever. But actually, if we only stay at home, if we only talk to each other through social medias in general, we are alone. We are not doing this, personal bound, heart to heart, okay? So fear keeps him at home, surrounded by technology, but isolated from social interaction with others, far from the human warmth that fosters motivating relationships. And this book, as I've put here for you, it's from 1998, more than 20 years ago, people. The lack of time no longer allows him a moment's reflection, pushing him to act and react on impulse. He is short of moments to himself inwardly, in mental and emotion spaces for prayer, meditation, or restoring strength drained by constant struggles. So, if we don't pay attention to our inner world, if we don't have moments of reflections, it's not loneliness, but it's for solitude, as we have seen in other meetings. So how can we, make this connection to our higher selves, what Jung calls the self, capital S? How can we make through the self, that is, you remember, in the transpersonal dimension of our psyche? So where there we are who we really are, and that we are, at this moment, we are incarnated in the material world, but we are also connected to the spiritual dimension. It's not up there in heaven, people. It's here at this moment, because our self is always, the capital S, our higher self is always present in the psyche. Actually, as says Jung and Joanna, it's the self, capital S, that is unifying and helping the ego live this experience, okay? So it's very important that we stay some moments of the day with our own higher self, trying to identify through synchronicities, intuitions, messages from the self that is always trying to communicate with the ego, okay? So at a time, says Joanna, when information multiplies, giving us simultaneous knowledge of many events, the things that get the most attention in the media, tragedies, eccentricities, violence, and a strong focus on sex, for instance, and threats of death and war, tend to leave individuals feeling insecure, as he does not have time to digest and properly absorb the news, selecting it. He becomes easily worn out or agitated, emotionally bracing himself for confrontations. I just want to tell you that I have seen lots of examples in my private clinic because, especially in the pandemic and afterwards, many people just left the TV on, for instance. And that made a lot of, bad reactions in the psyche because then you are constantly flooded by these tragedies and violence and crime. And it's like a vicious circle, okay? Because then the ego kind of says, wow, I want more than that. What's going on? So it gives kind of a sense for many people that tragedies are outside of my life and not in my life. So it makes me weaker in a sense, the ego, because then I don't find in myself the strength, the possibilities, the the abilities to cope with stresses of life. Okay, so pay attention to that. Someone that it's always trying to see on TV or other medias, news because I have to be up to date. We know what is, we know we are studying that, what we are, the conflicts that we are going through. We don't need to every day have our minds, our psyche flood with a lot of images of these eccentricities, right? And tragedies. So he experiences the phenomena of homeostasis, disruption, the balance, okay, inner balance, psychic balance, and the balance among all of our systems that make up, our being is disrupted. So which disturbs him both physically and psychologically. He allows himself, the human being, to be dragged by the load, becoming massified and losing touch with his own identity, becoming just another in the group he moves within, submitting to what is established, to the general taste, to others' will, to the needs defined by the organizers without being consulted beforehand. His pleasures become those granted to him by others, requiring him to feel good and have fun, as that is what is conventionally expected. As a member of the whole, his choices are the general options. Isn't that sad? You know? And this is from 1998, and we are even worse with all this immersion in social medias nowadays, more than 20 years later. Massification, says Joanna, culminates in dehumanization, leading him to return to the previous stage of basic impulses and instincts, which were suited to the ancient jungle and now appear as necessary in the modern one, which is built of stone, cement, and iron. In it, there is neither full freedom nor rewarding harmony, as it is artificial, noisy, aggressive, proposing a continuous, exhausting state of alert against its methods, equally violent members. The human mass as a group entity is devoid of soul and sensitivity. In its voluptuous march, it devastates, leaving physical and psychological rubble in its wake. Because its members have lost the ability to be individuals, pay attention to that. Because its members have lost the ability to be individuals, they explode at the sound of any commanding voice, dragged along by those who seduce them and act this way so as not to be crushed. Their interests become the collective ones, and everything is programmed, extinguishing in man the spontaneity that expresses his individuality, his psychological level, and his level of consciousness in which he finds himself. This is so, so important. I can't express how much important this is. Let's pay attention to what Joanna is calling us, and she has been calling us for more than 20, I think 30 years now. So it's very important that we reflect deeply upon that, because if we, lose our soul, our sensitivity, because of a massification, right? Because we think we are, because remember, people, in the basis of our brain, okay, is what we call reptilian brain, right? Our impulses, our sexual impulses, our fight and flight impulses, right? That come from early development of life here on Earth, right? When we were evolving as a species, right? So of course, if we are in a jungle, we need each other to survive, to fight or flight the tiger in the jungle, because we're going to be dead if we can count on each other. But supposedly, we are not in a jungle anymore. We don't need to fight. But if our brains have, okay, we have the higher functions of the brain, our cerebral cortex, okay, we have evolved, we have reasoning, we have self-analysis, this capacity to reflect deeply, to recognize ourselves as being in evolutions. So if we just stay in these basic impulses, if we let anyone, doesn't matter who, seduce us to this fight and flight impulses, okay? Or the basic sexual impulses, for instance, or eating impulses, nutrition. Of course, our body needs that, and it's recorded in our brains that we need to eat because we need to survive. We need fuel to the body. So these are all basic impulses. But of course, we are reasoning here. So we know that you guys in Europe, I don't know if you have already had dinner, for instance, or we are talking before dinner. Here in Brazil, we have just had lunch a couple of hours ago, so we are not feeling hungry, for instance. Maybe some of you are feeling hungry and thinking, when is Anahy going to stop talking because I'm hungry, for instance? Of course, your brain is telling you that, okay? But then you say, oh no, but I haven't read all the texts, haven't had time to go through all the text that Fabricio had put in the WhatsApp group. So I want to hear what Anaí is saying. I want to, reflect with the group. Okay, when I do that, I am thinking with my higher functions of the brain. I'm giving meaning. I'm reflecting upon something. And then, of course, my basic impulses will be in control. But what happens if I am like a robot, like last meeting we were talking about, Joanna was asking us to reflect upon that. And I hear in the TV or whatever program that, rumors of war, and I say, well, but some food can, disappear in the supermarket. Should I go there and buy stuff? Of course, oops, pay attention, because then your reptilian brain is going to be very active, and I will have to reason. No, Just I don't know if this is true of truth or not. Let me think. Let me meditate a little bit. Let me talk with my higher self. And wow, then it's very, very high functions of the brain, okay, that we are talking about. And then, of course, the fear, uh, the need to be in the group mass, then all diminishes, okay? And then I am again in a higher state of consciousness. So it's very important, last sentence here, their interests become the collective ones when we are like robots, okay? When we are being seduced by all this massification and everything is programmed, extinguishing in man the spontaneity that expresses his individuality, his psychological level of maturity, and his level of consciousness, even spiritual consciousness, right? Joanna says that we are evolving to cosmic consciousness in which we find out. So we are going to be expressing, if we let us be seduced by all that, we are going to be expressing the level of consciousness that we are in right now. So pay attention to that. So Joanna says that massification allows the negative. Sylvia, you have raised your hand.
Yes, just to say something um, on this point of massification and not being able to be individuals, there is even a name for this. I am from the tribe. I
Yes,
am from the
good.
tribe. So
Yes.
me as I was born
Thank
a
you,
rebellious
Sylvia.
person, as my uncle would say, I never been able to be member of anything like that. But I think this explains so much. And when I was reading this, I thought, my God, she's a prophet as well as
Yeah,
everything else, because it's exactly what's happening. And there is even a name. And if you're not part of the tribe, she explains it, that you are rejected. So I just thought it was so interesting.
that's
Sorry to
good. Thank you, Sylvia.
judge
And
you.
it's interesting because Fabricia and I made a little surprise for you after the PowerPoint presentation. There are nice tribes we can think, Sylvia. And of course, we're just being, a little humor here since Joanna is talking also about sense of humor today. So, because there are nice tribes and we could think that in a planetary sense, we are the human beings tribe, let's say. But if we compare to the main, a lot of planets that we know through spiritist knowledge that are inhabited also. So we are not the only humanity, right? There are many, many houses in the kingdom of the source that we call God, right? So, but it's a nice that Sylvia talked about the tribe, because pay attention to what tribe we're talking about, right? There are the small ones that think they have to fight others, and I think that's what Sylvia meant, right, Sylvia? And I had to fight others because my tribe, if you are not from my tribe, then you are my enemy. This is seduction also of the lower part of the brain. So massification allows the negative and disturbing release of human conflicts, which, when combined with those of others, becomes an uncontrollable inconvenience, one that causes more unrest in direct proportion to how it is externalized. As identifying the conflicted person becomes difficult due to the group observing them, the patient feels comfortable expanding their flaw, masking themselves, and appearing to be in another reality. By concealing it, however, it deepens its claws into the foundations of the unconscious. Wow. Causing him to become bewildered and unhappy. And remember this image that I showed you last meeting? It's more or less like that. This is one awful tribe, right, Sylvia? And everybody else. So Joanna says the human being is a universe with his own laws and constitution, although in harmony with all others, forming an immense family. Massified, he loses the ability, or he is prevented from having it, to express himself, to long for, and to live according to his own paradigm of aspiration and progress. It falls to him to mature his reflections, as we are doing today, in order to live within the group without belonging to it, to be in society without losing his identity, to encounter others but not let himself to be swept away by the senseless and compulsive forces of massification. Trying to dive into the self and enjoy moments of solitude, as we were talking before, without seeking isolation, are healthy, renewing attitudes that grant him inner beauty to counterbalance the wearisome shocks of the struggle of life. The pursuit of fulfillment is always personal, always, and the goal is equally intimate, corresponding to the stage of evolution of each individual. And I brought to you a little bit of Jung talking exactly about that, because Joanna is talking about the concept of individuation, okay? So Jung says conscious and unconscious do not make a whole when one of them is suppressed and injured by the other. If they must contend, let it at least be a fair fight with equal rights on both sides. Both are aspects of life, conscious and unconscious. Consciousness should defend its reason and protect itself. And the chaotic life of the unconscious should be given the chance of having its way too, as much as we can stand. This means open conflict and open collaboration at once. Isn't it a paradox? That is evidently, says Jung, is the way human life should be. It is the old game of hammer and anvil. Between them, the patient iron is forged into an indestructible whole, an individual. This roughly is what I mean by the individuation process. As the name shows, it is a process of or course of development arising out of the conflict between the two fundamental psychic facts, the conscious and the unconscious. Okay, so it's very important, people, that, and I think it's beautifully the way that this sentence by Jung complete and also, in a sense, come together with Jonah's teachings, right? Because we have, as human beings, as psychic life, as consciousness in evolution, be forged in an indestructible whole, an individual, okay, and not fall in this massification process. We have to individuate, as Jung says, right? Because it's from this conflict between consciousness and the unconscious forces, okay, of the psyche, that a new consciousness, let's say, an evolution happens in consciousness, okay? And this is in the Collective Words, volume 9. It's in the bottom, the reference, conscious, unconscious, and individuation. And this other part, in notes of the seminar given in 1930, between 1930 and 1934, Jung says individuation is not an intensification of consciousness. It is very much more. For you must have the consciousness of something before it can be intensified. And that means experience, life lived. See why we have to get out of, only a virtual life, okay? You can, say Jung, only be really conscious of things which you have experienced. So individuation must be understood as life. Only life integrates. Only life and what we do in life makes the individual appear. That's why, people, this life is so precious. This opportunity to be incarnated, even if sometimes we think we are suffering a lot, and sometimes we think we are not. Remember, forge our iron, and making our souls, evolve, our consciousness evolve towards, as says Joanna, cosmic consciousness. We know we are in a shift of consciousness globally as human beings, as humanity, going to another step in our spiritual evolution. So it's very, very important to understand that we are individuating, individually and collectively, okay? So Jung says, only life integrates. Remember, integration is mental health and spiritual health and evolution. Dissociation, when we fight without integrating what is in conflict within ourselves, when we dissociate, when we project our shadows onto others, when we are seduced by the collective shadow, because our shadows, personal shadows, are connected to the collective shadow, right? We are human beings evolving together. We are sharing the archetypes and the transpersonal dimension of the psyche. We are all waves of this beautiful ocean of life here on the planet, of our evolution as spirits together. So we have to live this life. We have to integrate our experiences here to get to achieve this wholeness of this experience, to evolve spiritually. So Jung says you cannot individuate, for instance, by locking yourself up in a cell. You can only individuate in your concrete life. You appear in your deed. There you can individuate and nowhere else. He said that in 1930. So we have modern cells nowadays. We even say our mobiles, right? For instance, of course, they can be instruments and they can help us. Our computers, I would not be able to talk to you if we're not in this technology, and I'm grateful for that. But we cannot spend the whole day immersed on that, because then it's going to be like a cell that Jung is saying, and we are going to be locking ourselves in this cell, right? And then we are not going to be individuating and doing what our higher self has proposed to do in this experience in life. So going back to Joanna, she says, earthly existence carries a valuable ethical, aesthetic, intellectual, and spiritual contribution, and not just the material demands and fleeting satisfactions of the ego, without the compensation of the self. Human beings are the measure of their aspirations and achievements. Without them, mediocrity overcomes them. Each goal achieved provides the reward of victory and the encouragement for new accomplishments. When this does not happen, misinterpreted failures lead to disharmony, from which inhibiting factors for new attempts arise, along with the abandonment of effort and the loss of the ability to start again. It is fair never to lose heart. Every rise requires sacrifice. Every freedom comes from effort. Breaking the psychological shackles responsible for self-disdain, dejection, and self-denial becomes a matter of urgency in order to foster a clear view of reality and the skillful means to live it well. The ability to maintain a sense of humor, says Joanna, in the most varied opportunities results from psychological maturity, which fosters the acquisition of important values for the perfect balance of life. Being able to face embarrassing situations without rebellion or self-pity, viewing them as natural phenomena of the evolutionary process, identifying oneself as human and susceptible to all occurrences, accepting unexpected events with good humor, and allowing oneself to laugh at oneself, at one's own mistakes, while being willing to correct them, are achievements of self-love. Love, in its vast array of expressions, sustains the sense of humor, providing the individual with enriching possibilities, among which are the joy of life in however way it presents itself, the understanding of others and one's own flaws, the courage to repeat failed experiences until success is achieved, and especially the feeling of intimate spaces with meaningful accomplishments. Modern life, with its sophisticated demands, gives rise to many conflicts that can be avoided through self-awareness, and the experience of sense of humor, that is the natural and positive way of facing everyday events. Every moment offers a rebirth when one is vigilant enough to seize it. A life full of ideals ought to be employed through the diverse resources of today to turn chaos into harmony, sickness into health, and the inclination towards self-harm into the extension of life under the edges of love, which must command, inspire, and conquer everything. Because of love's presence and vigor, the world shifts and human beings are set free, reaching their full potential. And to finish, so that we can debate a little bit, I brought to you, because I know a lot of people love nature and feel this connection to nature, this image. Now I was not at the beach, I was up in the mountains here in our state, and I was reflecting upon the symbolism of Easter that we only had a few days ago. And then there was these three pine trees that are very typical to our mountains here in the very south of Brazil, with the sun behind it. You can make all the symbolism with rebirth and Easter. And as we have seen the symbolism of number 3, just a little bit to remind everyone, and the number 3 has many symbolic meanings, including harmony, balance, and completeness. And in Christianity, there is the Trinity of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And just to finish, these are some images when I got under the tree and I thought of all the teachings of Joanna de Angelis and how, because a tree holds a significant symbolic meaning, okay? It represents life, growth, strength, and connection to the source, to God. So I thought of us as each one of these small flowers, fungus, or small plants that are all connected to this tree that tries to go up to the skies, to evolve, as Joanna says, towards the source, towards God, in our own individuation. Thank you all, and let's go to our conversation. I'll just stop sharing.
If
So with you,
anyone,
Fabricio.
do you want to share the video now or after the questions and answers?
Oh, I think the video would be nice to inspire people, and it's only 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, let me share it. Just 1 second. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, I need to do something to share the sound as well.
Now, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me know so if you can actually hear the sound.
As we
Can you hear the sound?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
all know, when something falls from the sky, it can only have come from the gods. Of course, the gods only send good and useful things. However, this time they made a mistake. The gods must be crazy. The unusual story of Key, the bushman, as he travels to the edge of the earth to return the gods' mistake. A most unpredictable journey, fraught with dangerous gorillas, a modest schoolteacher, a dedicated scientist, a tree bearing strange fruit, bizarre machinery, and wild beasts. The gods must be crazy. A serious and revealing look at civilized man. Organized.
Stop!
Gallant.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Poised.
How far do we have to go? How?
Sensible. Suave and debonair.
I brought you. I'm sorry.
Gentleness.
He's got to take the money. It's the law.
He can't use that stuff.
Well, I have to.
Bushmen don't know about money.
And as for the edge of the earth, a sense of wonder, a touch of magic. The gods must be crazy. An epic comedy of absurd proportions.
Are you suffering from a wound on your lower leg? Then you probably...
So that was to inspire the debate, right, Fabricio?
Yes. So before we go to our last part, which we will not be recording, does anyone has got any questions that we want to raise? Because remember, we are doing these in 3 blocks. We're doing Anahy PowerPoint presentation, and then we're moving on to questions and answers. And then the final bits, it's a part of the study group where we offer a space for us to sharing our personal stuff. That is the reason we won't be recording the last bit of this presentation. Any questions? If you have any question, raise your Zoom hand. I think I will start then with one question. So, in Anahy presentation, we see that Joanna is sharing with us that there is a need for us to go back inward because there are so much distractions going on and we spending far too much time make this movement outward. I wonder in this group, are you aware that when Joanna says that, is that something that triggers you? Because for me, the reason I'm saying that I want to share with the group, um, it feels like there were this movement of us getting more and more and more obsessed about virtual stuff, social media, all those distractions. And I wonder how much of that was a conscious movement, or we just being taken by this wave without us even realize. Because for me, when I look at it, it feels like it has been like that for myself. Recently I've been become more aware how much of this, because when I was reading Joanna, it was triggering me so much, and it felt like she was talking to me, you know. Is and then I start realizing that I was not even aware that I was so much in this space of outwarding, going out, all this distraction, and maybe not spending enough time on reflections and meditation and prayer and reading, and maybe even being by myself without feeling alone, or even being by myself, not having that need to, oh my God, I have to be in the middle of everybody else because that's what everybody else is doing. And I wonder how is that feels for everyone in the group.
I can contribute to that, Fabrizio.
Mm.
It is quite amazing when you start realizing how much you just go, you're on your daily life on an automatic pilot, and you don't stop. And suddenly you have that urge that, what am I doing? What am I doing? And you feel your whole body is in so much adrenaline, but it's not a good feeling. And you kind of need to pause. And when you pause, it's so powerful. And powerful in the sense that you suddenly aligned, and you centered, and everything, the sense of everything changes. Everything mutates to a certain understanding that you can see that all the things that you are worried about are not as big as you think. Things make more sense on the level that you can understand and you can deal with. And that is something, I think that's the most powerful experience that Joanna brought into my life when she talks about meditation, when she talks about looking at things as they really are, because she always invites us to do that, and using our psychological maturity to actually look at things. And that is so powerful when you pause. When you pause for a couple of minutes, it doesn't have to be a 30 minutes meditation. It's just connect to your senses. That's powerful enough.
Well, Lita, I think that's so important what you said, because, for instance, I was thinking, listening to what Fabrizio was saying, and you were saying that, for instance, reading Joanna, okay? Maybe sometimes we say, oh, this is too much stuff, or sometimes we say, well, she's repeating herself. Don't you guys have sometimes this idea? Oh, the same the texts are different, but they are talking about more or less the same thing. So, and she's repeating herself. And what I have learned after all these years reading Joanna, remember that in the beginning of our meetings, I said, let's try to read her with the knowledge of the heart, not only of our minds, our cognitive processes. No, with the heart. Because what happens is that it happens to me every day, people. I have read that many times, for instance, to give, because I teach Joanna for many years now. But then each time that I'm reading, and for instance, I've read in the middle of the week again, and then I read a day before, and then I read a little more to prepare, for instance, the PowerPoint, to select which which part I'm going to, just put in the PowerPoint so we can reflect. Each time is different. Each time there is a different answer within myself. And it's kind of crazy that for me, I'm a psychiatrist, okay? Then I'm saying it's kind of crazy. Don't get amazed with that. It's just because I understood the process, and I think that's what Lolita is saying. The first time or the first times you read with the ego consciousness, and the ego is have a lot of complexes related to them. So if I don't understand, and I have to read in Portuguese and in English, right? And okay, English is kind of my second language, but it's not my mother language, let's say. So I get different experiences from both of the languages. And in the beginning, it's like in the first time that I read, it's like the ego. And sometimes, and I asked Joanna forgiveness because then I said, I have read that before. Aren't you repeating yourself? We have to have some sense of humor. She tells us to do that. But then I said, okay, and I, my higher self, go and read again, or sleep and read the other day. And then what I find is that I found it's like opening a window, in another window and another window. Then I find other meanings. And I think that's what you said, Lolita, right? It's like a meditation. And it's like meanings reveal themselves. That's why Hunter wants to talk. And that's why I think that it's so important, Fabrizio, that we don't get caught up, because I get nervous doing, for instance, sometimes the PowerPoint. Oh, what Joanna wants me to stress, to put in the summary so that then, but this is important. That's all the ego. That's all, things like a medical person that thinks everything has to be perfect in that point. And then I relaxed and I said, no, let's see what Joanna, and then a book appear, then I open one of Jung's book. Oh, this is so nice, that as I put to you, that's exactly what Joanna was saying. So when the higher self is talking, when we can calm down the ego, there are a lot of like subtitles or subtext or something behind the text. And I think that's meditation and that's prayer functions in the same way. We kind of tune in with, and probably even if Fabrizio is in England and I'm in Brazil, because we have had this experience, right, Fabrizio? He thought something and I thought something very similar. And we are so far apart in the distance or even in time, in physical, but not in the higher self. So I don't know, just a comment. And I think it's beautiful what you and Fabrizio said, because it's exactly that, I think, what Joanna is asking us to do. Hunter, you want to say something?
I just want to comment on something which, using your expression on tuning in, I would use it on tuning out. And since I've joined Lolita's group or prayer group, in the morning, I put on my watch, my alarm for the different regions where the prayer is going to be. It could be at 5:30, 6:30 and everything. So what's happened to me with my sort of rushing here and rushing there and tuning in to this modern world, I've learned how to tune out, because with this prayer group, it's like a traffic lights for me in my day. And the red light comes on at Lolita's prayer group or the other groups as well. And then this creates a chain effect of me having a meditative evening, because it's a catalyzer. It creates a continuation. So, but this has changed my life. And when I said this in the prayer group as well, a lot of them sort of said, well, by joining prayer groups at a certain time, it also has changed our lives. But I like this way. I got a little book which sort of says, tune in with the infinity. But I think another way of looking at it is tuning out of this modern world, I think is a very good phrase. But you've got to have an alarm clock for that. Otherwise, you get caught up with the day. Huh?
That's fantastic. I love the paradox, tuning in and tuning out. I think it's beautiful. Exactly. It's a way out of, all this noise, right, Roderick? Yeah, totally. And, I'm always in my heart with you, but usually I'm in with patients. But I feel like, oh, I want to be in Lolita's prayer group. And but I think it's very important that we understand that even if our egos are doing some tasks, and sometimes we think we are going to miss. For instance, if when Fabrizio asked me to do something, I said, yes, I want to do that, and I want to do that, and I want to be in that group, and I want to see my colleagues talking. But and then you get a little compulsive, right, Fabrizio? We get because we want to be in all places at the same time, especially when we are in this vibration of, I want to be feeling inner peace and I want to be connected with my brothers and sisters that want to evolve. But the problem is that, okay, we have the ego and we have material and also important tasks that the ego has to fulfill. So I think it's beautiful, rather, that you said that tuning in and out and it can be at the same time. It's like, quantum physics, because the ego can be doing a task and the higher self can be connected to, that dimension that we are trying to achieve. Go ahead, Roderick, you wanted to say something
No,
else?
it's just that I want to say that when my alarm goes off, I can be, in chaos and in my life in the business side. But I'm with Lolita's. I'm in the. I can do the two at the same time. My training of my mind of being part of that prayer group. I can be there and carry on with my day-to-day life. It works like that. Huh?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful testimony for everyone to follow, actually, because what I think that Joanna is saying, that we are evolving to cosmic consciousness. It means that we are awakening different potentials of our spirit and our psyche, and to be able to be kind of in different, let's not say places because it's not physical, right? But states of mind, maybe, or psychic states. I think it's totally what you are saying, right, Roderick?
Thank you.
Beautifully, yes, and
Thank you, Anahy. So I'm going to stop the recording now. I'm going to say goodnight to our viewers and stay in the line the rest of the group.